Hey, what's going on, everyone? I just wanted to make this video here as I just completed Yakuza 6 a few weeks ago. Sort of like a PSA video for those of you who are unaware of this franchise, or maybe you're just sort of on the edge deciding whether or not you wanted to give it a shot. I sort of wanted to talk about my experience now having played pretty much all the Yakuza games with the exception of some of the spin-offs, but now that we have Yakuza 7, or as it's known here in the States, Yakuza Like a Dragon, releasing as a launch title for the Series X, and then later on for the PS5, and it's also releasing for current gen consoles this November. I wanted to make a quick video just talking about my love for this franchise and why I care about it so much. Now, I was originally always sort of lukewarm on this series, right? I knew it was out there, and to tell you the truth, I actually played the original back when it came out in was it 2004 or 2005? I actually got it as a subscriber of PlayStation Magazine back in the day. They used to send you demo discs because there is no online PlayStation store to download demos. And so the idea was that you would subscribe to the magazine, and then every month they would send you a magazine, and in there would be basically a disc you would put inside your PlayStation 2, and it would have demos to all these upcoming games, and Yakuza was one of those upcoming games. And I remember playing it at the time, and I can't tell you if I truly liked it, but I never got the original full game when it came out, because keep in mind, back then I was 10, 11 years old, and so, you know, it was that coupled with the fact that this was more of an adult-oriented franchise that, you know, I just never played the original. But I do remember, I do remember actually do playing the demo of it, despite not having played the full game. And then I actually gave the series sort of a chance for Yakuza 4, and the reason was that I was basically looking for something to play, and I saw it at GameStop one time, just sort of browsing, and I was like, oh yeah, Yakuza 4, I remember wanting to give this series a shot, and so I think I paid like 15 or 20 bucks for the game, and I took it home and played it, and my God, I just fell in love. Not only did it have such a thematic, like, beautifully character-driven story that was filled with so many twists and turns and just characters that were really deep, you know, and very well written. And I also loved the aspect of how unapologetically Japanese it was. You know, it was so... This is a Japanese game, like, through and through, right? But it really just basks in the fact that it is this game, and it really celebrates the culture, you know. And Japanese culture is something that I just find so fascinating, and I just really love. You know, it's one that I do have an actual interest in. But you know, that being said, that game for me was just really an eye opener. I was really surprised at just the depth of how great the storytelling was in Yakuza 4, and I was like, oh my God, I want to play this series now. And so this was, you know, back 2012, I believe, was Yakuza 4, and I went back and I bought Yakuza 3 as well, played that, and again loved it. But I actually liked Yakuza 4 a little bit more, to be quite honest. But I still found it really, really engaging. And so now we sort of are getting into the next generation, right? At that time, the PlayStation 4 coming out, and at this time, Yakuza is still a exclusive to PlayStation console game. And so when Yakuza 5 came out, it came out first on PS3, and it came out a few years later. And I remember I did download and pre-order it on the PlayStation Store, but we were well into the life cycle of the PS4 at that time. And so I actually, you know, played the game initially, tried to get into it, but for whatever reason, I just didn't finish it. And I think it was because of the fact that I had PS4 now, and I had 2 years worth of games, you know, that I was playing, and I didn't really I didn't have time at that particular moment to actually go back and play PS3 games, or at least I just didn't make the time, even for something like Yakuza 5. And so I kind of that was the one I didn't complete at the time. And then what happened is, just a year later, in 2016, Yakuza 0 released. And Yakuza 0 is a prequel to the entire Yakuza franchise. And that game in particular, now having played basically all the mainline Yakuza games, is my personal favorite in the entire series. It has the best story of all of them, in my opinion. And on top of that, the combat and just how visceral it looks. I mean, it's a really amazing game, and I recommend anyone who's watching this video, maybe you're wondering, okay, which game in this series should I start off with. Yakuza 0 is great because it doesn't require you to know anything about the previous Yakuza games, as it is a prequel, and I honestly believe that the storytelling in that is just light years beyond anything else we got throughout this entire series. It's just that particular story that they were telling is just fantastic, and it features two of the most iconic characters in the whole franchise that you get to play with, each with their own different style. And even though at that time, because early on, the Yakuza 0 and the original Kiwami game, which I'll get into in a little bit, they're built on the PS3 Yakuza engine. So they're kind of sort of last gen in their style, the way that they handle. That being said, kind of stiff animations and arcadey-like gameplay, and then just sort of this sort of static world, that doesn't change much. And then, they made the next generation engine, this is really their next gen engine with the later games in the series, but I'll get to that in a bit. Anyway, Yakuza 0 just blew me away, and I still think about it to this day, having played it 4 years ago, just how surprisingly excellent that game was. I mean, even if you're not into this series, I feel like that story that it told was excellent enough that it'll just keep you engaged through and through, and it's absolutely beautiful. And so that really, for me, sort of solidified my love for the series, right? And if I didn't love Yakuza then, it was like right at that moment when I played and completed Yakuza 0 was when I fell in love, and it was just so awesome. And so now at that point we started getting a little bit of traction in the US because Yakuza is super popular in Japan, but it was interesting because the developers always thought that the game wouldn't ever be successful here, that it would just be too quirky and the game would be too Japanese focused in its culture and its writing and everything, that people here wouldn't be able to understand it, people in the States. And it's nice to finally see the series get some traction. But that I feel like post Yakuza 0 is when that finally started to steamball, and it started coming into a more popular light for the other markets. And so after that we had a remake of the original Yakuza game, which is awesome. It's called Yakuza Kiwami, and Kiwami means extreme in Japan. And essentially, it's the retelling of Yakuza 1's story, but they actually went in, and it is a full-blown remake, right? So they actually did go in and actually reshoot and do additional writing for the cutscenes in the game. So you actually get longer cutscenes and more, better scripted cutscenes as well that happen throughout Yakuza Kiwami, even though it is the same core story. And Yakuza, the original Yakuza, I remember playing it on the PS2 as a fixed camera, very sort of arcadey. It kind of reminded me almost of God of War, but instead of having blades and it's all fantasy, you use your fist. It's a beat 'em up game, and so it kind of reminded me of God of War in that respect. But it's sort of going into the PS3 era. That's when they kind of became 3D, more third-person, open world, and that you really saw a dramatic change in the way that game was played. And so we got the remake of Yakuza Kiwami, which is great, and then we got Yakuza 6. And this is the one that you're seeing right now. This is the last game in the series for Kazuma Kiryu here, who is the main character, who's been the main character since the original Yakuza game. So Yakuza 6 is sort of the end of his story. And then we have a new character that we're going to be getting in Yakuza 7, or I guess that we already got, because the game's been out in Japan. We always get it like a year or so late. So I was really looking forward to seeing how they were going to end this story, and I heard sort of somewhat mixed things, honestly, on Yakuza 6. I heard, first and foremost, that the story wasn't as engaging as the previous games, and so I was a bit worried. But I actually held off on playing this game because I didn't fully complete Yakuza 5, and I also knew that they were coming out with a Yakuza Kiwami 2, which was a remake of the second Yakuza game. So my goal was, okay, I want to be able to sit there and play through Yakuza Kiwami and Kiwami 2, the first two remakes of the original Yakuza games, before I started the last entry in this series for this character. And that was the idea I had, so that it gave me sort of a full perspective on the story and everything that where it sort of started and up to where it finished. And I'm really glad I did, actually, because it gave me a newfound respect for just everything and seeing how far this series has come. But on top of that, they also announced that they were going to remaster Yakuza 3, 4, and 5, which were PS3 only games. We were going to get remasters of those on PS4, and so that's what I've actually been playing over these past couple months. I played 3 and 4 again, the remastered on PS4, and then I tried at least to play Yakuza 5. Yakuza 5 for me stands as the only game in the series I cannot complete, and I really tried. I absolutely love this series, but this series is unapologetically Japanese, and it celebrates that culture. And Yakuza 5 for me was just an abundance of mini games and just unnecessary, boring stuff. It's got a lot of variety in terms of what it does, but for me, it's like, I want to see an excellent story unfold, and I want to, have really fun, engaging gameplay. And the way that Yakuza 5 sort of broken up as you switch between the 5 different characters, and each character has different gameplay beats, it didn't sit well with me. And I didn't complete it back when it came out on PS3 in 2015, and I sort of blamed it on the fact that we had the PS4 for already 2 years at the time. But I tried it again, the remastered on PS4, and I still couldn't beat it. So it's going to stand as really, the only game in the series that I just could not physically beat. I doubt I'm going to go back and try to do it a third time. But that being said, I did actually watch a playthrough of the game, so I got fully up to date on the story that it was telling, which I do have to admit, it was a really nice story. I just felt like the gameplay was just and in some cases, actually in many cases, I will say, even if the gameplay is not so engaging, I will suffer through it in order to experience a really beautiful story. What Yakuza 5 was doing for me is it was putting you in like 4 hours of nonsense, and you had to like sit there. I mean, I played the game for 2 days straight, solid on a weekend, putting hours and hours in. And I swear, I felt like I didn't progress the story one bit. I just felt like I completely wasted my time, and I was no longer having fun. So that's why I sort of had to leave that game behind. But I started Yakuza 6, and I have to say that I just really found it enjoyable. Now, with Yakuza Kiwami 2 and Yakuza 6 that you're seeing right now, they actually built a full brand new engine for this game. And the way that this engine is constructed is entirely different from the previous Yakuzas. And what you're seeing right now is a level of dynamism and interaction that previously was not available on this series. This game really gives you the feeling that you're walking down, these beautiful towns and beachfronts of Japan. And it's further coupled by the fact that you have stores and different buildings that you can actually just walk into, because previously, again, this was built during the PS3 days, right? So it had sort of that last gen engine. Whenever you wanted to enter a store to maybe buy supplies or do anything, you would have to push X to enter the door, and then it would sit you through a loading screen. And you would load basically into the store, and then you would have to load out as you walked out of the store into the open world city again. With this, it's just so seamless, and it just further enhances that feeling that you're in a real place. And I absolutely love that in this game. Like, you just feeling, there's this sense of wanting to explore everything. And I rarely get that in open world games, where it's like the world is so interesting that you actually just want to explore just for the heck of it. Because I played 60 hours of Assassin's Creed and 60 hours of Red Dead Redemption 2, and I put 80 and 90 hours into The Witcher 3, and those are great open worlds, I would say, but I didn't ever once sit there and say, I'm just gonna go over here just for the hell of it to see what's over here. This is one of the very, 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 very few games where I actually felt that sense of wanting to explore, because it was just so interesting and it's so detailed. It really makes you feel like you're actually in a real place. And so as you're walking down exploring these streets, it's like, wow, I'm actually in Japan, sort of walking down these streets as if it were real life. And I absolutely love that. And then on top of that, you also have a much more fluid combat system. In fact, animation work in particular is done extremely well. The enemies go all ragdoll, which is kind of funny, to be honest, because you can throw them and do these insane moves and stuff. But that's the beauty of this series, is that it tells this sort of hardcore emotional narrative. But when it comes to the gameplay, when it comes to the side missions and just the world and stuff, it isn't afraid to sit there and not take itself so seriously. And I love that. I love that it injects humor into the game, because yes, you'll get to those emotional moments and they will hit you emotionally because the writing is just so good. But it's also a video game, and it's also able to give you fun and just joy as you're sort of exploring this world. And it's absolutely breathtaking, sitting here and actually walking around just for the hell of it, and just playing this game and having those missions, and it's just a really great time. And so I feel like for anyone who's sort of on the fence, if you're like me, where you love storytelling and you really want something that's engaging and something that's gonna make you feel something, I feel like this series can really do a really good job at least getting you interested, and keeping your interest throughout its entire runtime. And I've had a lot of people tell me over the years that they played Yakuza and they got into Yakuza, and it was because of my insistence of how good this series was. And so I almost feel like for any of you who are on the fence, this is this would be a really good opportunity to sort of get into the series, because now you have basically the entire saga on one console. I mean, that's awesome that you can experience the entire series, the entire story up to this point on one console. And my thoughts on Yakuza Like a Dragon or Yakuza 7 is, I'm a bit sort of iffy on the gameplay. I don't like turn-based stuff. However, I will say that when I played the demo for Final Fantasy VII Remake, I really enjoyed the way that game played. I actually enjoyed it more than this more streamlined, simple Final Fantasy 15 gameplay. And so someone who doesn't like turn-based combat, if it's engaging enough and there's enough interaction and if they make it exciting enough, I think that I'll probably enjoy Yakuza 7. But at the very least, I'm going to enjoy exploring that world anyway. And the very fact that we're going to get that as a launch title on Series X, which is going to be my first Yakuza game I'll ever play on an Xbox console, but I think that's really exciting. I think that's pretty awesome. And so, yeah, again, for any of you who are sort of on the fence about this series, I really hope that you do give it a shot and start with Yakuza 0. I feel, again, like that's the best game from a story standpoint, and the gameplay is also very, very engaging. It's not as fluid as this, right? It doesn't have the dynamism of Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2's world, but it does have the roots of what the franchise is all about to begin with. And there's a ton of side content, but if you don't want to do that, you can get right into the story, and the story is so awesome in that game in particular. It's just freaking badass, and you'll love the characters. The villains have real depth, and you really sort of get an understanding for why they're doing the things that they're doing. And there's so many cool twists in that game as well. I really hope that for those of you who, again, are sort of lukewarm about this game, that you do give it a chance, because I think that you'll find something very, very truly special and engaging, and at the core of this. So that's all. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was sort of not nicely written as sort of my other reviews on it, but I wanted this to be more of a PSA more than anything. And you know, I really enjoyed playing this series, and it's a beautiful Yakuza 6. I really felt was a beautiful end to Kazuma Kiryu's character arc. It just did a great job, and I'm really excited for Yakuza 7. I'm excited to see the way it plays, and hopefully it is engaging and exciting enough that you know, I'm gonna be really happy with the gameplay. But at the very least, exploring this world, a much larger, more dynamic Japan, on especially on next gen consoles, where you know, it's going to be 60 frames per second. I heard is pretty awesome. So thank you guys so much. Hope you enjoyed this video. And for any of you who have played the Yakuza games, please write in the comments about, you know, what do you love about this series? You know, what is it that made this series special for you? I'm really be interested to hear what you guys think. All right, thank you all so much. Have a good one.